Minimalists.
How do you prevent other people's negativity from turning you negative? Well, you got to cut those people out, or at least ask them to stop being so negative around you. I've had that with family where they want to constantly be negative, and I'm like, look, I love you. I love having conversations with you, but we have to find some room to be positive. So let's focus on more positive things, because if we're just going to focus on negative things, like I have to step away from this because it makes me negative.
You know, I'll give you a specific example when I did this. I did it with myself. I found myself, especially when I was going through those health problems, I'd get caught in that downward spiral of negativity. And woe was me, this is never going to be over. And I finally told myself, literally out loud in the mirror, Simon Marshall gave me this exercise. He's a therapist. And he basically said, you have to have this conversation with yourself. And what I did was I said, hey, I can't be around this version of you. I said it to myself.
Yeah.
And it made me change my own behavior, because I said, hey, look, I can't be around this version of you. And if I can say that to myself, I certainly should be able to say that to someone else.
Yeah, and even if somehow you can help them understand that, like, even if it was me who was behaving this way, I wouldn't be able to be around myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And try to help them, understand that.
All right. Tiana, at the very bottom, Ryan, has a question for us.
How can we find non-negative people? You can go visit nonnegativepeople.com. Sign up for their email list.
Well, that's a good segue. I mean, a few places. The community tab on Patreon is a great place to share your experiences.
Yeah.
Also, if you're in one of the 8 countries where we have meetup groups, minimalist.org, there's 100 free local meetup groups. You can find people there. You know what? I bet you there's some negative people in those meetup groups too, though.
Oh, yeah.
And so it doesn't mean you're going to find perfect people in these groups.
Have we cussed yet on this episode?
I mean, it's Patreon, but Sean's saying no.
All right. Then I won't cuss. I'll just say it politely.
Okay.
Get off of social media. If you want to find non-negative people, get off of social media and start building relationships other ways. Because I have a feeling that a lot of the negativity that Tiana is experiencing is coming from Facebook. It's coming from Twitter. It's coming from other places.
So many of our negative relationships are birthed out of what? Proximity, right? Which is just closeness to someone, right?
Yeah.
So or convenience. Now, that's social media. All of a sudden, people who were not close to you, they're now in your proximity. They're right there. They're literally right here on this glowing screen.
Yeah.
It doesn't get closer than that, right?
Yeah.
Until it's been inserted into some microchip in my head.
Yeah.
But until then, it doesn't get closer to that. So negative relationships are birthed out of proximity and convenience. What else is convenient? Well, we happen to work next cubicle over from each other. We work in the same restaurant or retail store.
Yeah.
We work at the same job. These negative relationships are often relationships we feel that we have to be around. You can limit your time around them. So maybe the answer to your question is actually in the question itself. How do you identify? Let's take that word "non" out of here, Ryan. If I were to read this question again, is how can we find negative people? That's an easy answer, right?
Yeah.
They're proximity and convenience. Well, what's the opposite of that? We need to seek out inconvenient relationships. And if we seek out inconvenient relationships, ones that there's a vetting process involved. What's that vetting? Well, it means we share similar values. How do I identify what my values are? Well, you go to theminimalists.com/V. There's a essay right there that says how to understand your values. And you take a look, you identify what your values are, you start to identify the values of other people. And if you value non-negative relationships, then that's one of your values. It's going to be one of your structural values probably.
Dude, it's interesting because I feel like Michelle's question and Tiana's question are kind of the same. How do you prevent others' negativity from turning you negative? I mean, that is why I had to get off of Facebook. It was creating such negativity in my life because I was in this phony world where people are expressing recreational outrage. Therefore, it made me want to push against their recreational outrage to the point where it was sticking with me all day long. And I had to identify I'm constantly having these arguments in my head because of Facebook. And so I got off of there. So
what you're saying here, Ryan, is your brain is a domicile, and you're going to let
you're a domicile.
You're going to let people pay, or you're going to let people have access to it rent free. The question is, who do you want to give rent-free access to this domicile? Because there's only so much space in there, right? There's 24 hours in a day. There's our focus, our attention can be spent only on a finite amount of discrete bits of input. And you get to decide, am I going to focus on the negativity? Am I going to let the negative people free rent in my head? And if I am, who am I pushing out by giving those people the free rent?